It's time for Top Story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Well, this week in the news, there was about 12 drug arrests made by District Attorney Brooks Baker's office and Hornell Police, the Steuben County Sheriff's Department, Canisteo and Corning Police, and State Police. Also in the news, State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul both stopped by Hornell. So this week on Top Story, we'll hear audio highlights from the DA's press conference on the dozen drug arrests. We'll also hear audio sound bites from the State Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Starting out with sound here from the District Attorney's press conference from Thursday.
About 40 police officers from 5 different agencies and my office met here at the Hornell Police Department. Were briefed and began the process of culminating this multi-month investigation here in the city of Hornell. The operation was coordinated by the efforts of the Hornell Police Department. Investigator Thomas Ianni and Chief Murray took the lead in this situation. They developed a series of drug cases over about a 4 or 5 month period, called in the District Attorney's Drug Initiative, and we had assistance from a number of other agencies in putting together the investigation and arrest. As is the process in that group, different agencies brought different resources and people to the table. The Steuben County Sheriff's Office was involved, Canisteo Police Department, Corning Police Department, the New York State Police lent us CNET assets as well as troopers and backroom investigators from the BCI, and it was a very successful operation. We handed up a number of indictments, and today we went out and picked those people up. There's a list of 13 people who were picked up as part of this sweep. Their pictures are behind us on the wall. They are all people who are involved in the drug trade here in the city of Hornell. And the unit that appeared today was fantastic. We had 3 canine units involved in today's operation, 1 from the Sheriff's Department, 2 from the New York State Police. We had road patrol deputies and road patrol troopers, and Hornell police officers in marked cars, as well as Canisteo police officers in marked cars, and investigators from the Corning Police Department, the Steuben County Sheriff's Office, as well as the New York State Police assistant. We were able to pick up essentially all of our targets by about 9:30. We're about 3 hours on the road picking people up. All of them have been remanded to Steuben County Jail. We'll face arraignment here in the relatively near future. And that's what happened today. So any questions about what we've done, you can address them. This is Ted Murray and Tom Ianni did a fantastic job putting this together. This is one of those operations that was not only developed by traditional means of investigation, but also by tips from the public, and the tip line is here. That's something which has been obviously forwarded very significantly by our sheriff, and was very helpful in this particular situation. This is one of those situations where all law enforcement came together and did a fantastic job in taking a lot of drug dealers off the streets here in the city of Hornell.
So District Attorney Brooks Baker there, you heard him thanking all those involved and the agencies involved too, and sharing some details about the arrest. First question here comes from Jason Jordan at the Evening Tribune.
Were all these suspects made known to you through the tip line, or was it community tips, or direct contact with people in the neighborhood?
Well, I think Tom can address some of that. Obviously, we don't want to let everything out of the bag as far as how these are ongoing cases. We're still facing prosecution, but Tom, if you can address that a little bit.
Some of them, yes. We had information from the tip line.
So, Investigator Tom Ianni there from the Hornell Police telling Jason Jordan of the Evening Tribune that it was some tips that came in from the tip line. The next question came from Time Warner. And Time Warner asked, what message are you sending to the community?
What's the message you want to send to anyone who is doing stuff like this?
Well, I think the message is clear. I mean, look at the people sitting at this table. Law enforcement is working together cooperatively like we never have before. And the idea is if you're going to sell drugs in this county, you're going to be found out through the tip line, through traditional investigative means, and then all of us are going to work together to make sure you go to jail.
And then the Time Warner reporter asked another question of the officials. Do you think this was a drug ring? Brooks Baker answered.
Do you believe this was one kind of drug ring? Is it the same substance? Can you say what that is? Just a little more detail on that?
There are a number of different substances that were charged here. Some are prescription pills, OxyContin, Vicodin. Some of those charges are here. There's also a fair amount of crack cocaine set forth in these. The possession with intent to sell and sales is what this is for. This is not a singular ring. This is a situation where this is an ongoing investigation that led to a whole bunch of different people. But it's one of those things where one tip leads to 2 tips, leads to 3 tips, one piece of information leads to the next, and we end up with this many folks.
The next question is from a reporter who wanted to know if there would be more to come as far as investigations and arrest goes.
Yes, I think you will see this happen in other parts of the county throughout the coming months. And you'll see the same base at the table because there'll be Hornell folks helping us in Corning or Bath, and the same is happening here.
Then Time Warner asked a question about the tip line. Sheriff Dave Cole answered that question.
Anyone that sees anything going on, if they would call the drug tip line or email the drug tip line, what I do is I receive all the information and I forward it to the state police, to all the various police departments, and to our folks, so everybody has it, and they have knowledge that we're getting tips on a particular residence that's dealing drugs. And
then the Time Warner reporter asked how much time he thought the suspects would be doing. Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker.
These are all felony charges. There are sentences available up to 15 years depending upon the level of the charge. There are B felonies here, which are some of the most significant that there are in the drug world. So these are serious charges. The charges range from E to D felonies. There are no misdemeanor conduct with these folks. So this is all state prison type stuff, and we'll be seeking prison sentences in most of these cases, if not all, depending upon the facts.
Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray was asked what's it like to have some of these suspects off the streets.
It's very significant. You know, if you go back, even a couple of years ago, we didn't have this cooperative effort within the county to work together to attack people that were bringing drugs into our community. And it's very important to us to keep our community clean, to keep our housing clean. And I give a lot of credit to our district attorney for his initiatives to put expertise in his office, working with our department, to bring in a cooperative effort with other agencies.
And Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray there also made a note of saying that the cooperation between the different law enforcement agencies works very well. Then another question from Jason Jordan at the Hornell Evening Tribune asking about the Hornell to Rochester connection, as one of the suspects was from Rochester.
It's not uncommon that you have people that may be from Rochester that might come to the Hornell area and sell drugs. I think that's kind of the connection.
So do you feel like that's the common pipeline for drugs? The Rochester to Southern Tier corridor?
One of many, but...
And Hornell Police Investigator Tom Maini answered that question.
There's many ways that people deal in the city of Hornell, and some of our drug people do go to Rochester to transport drugs back into the city of Hornell, as well as going to other areas, to larger cities.
The question was asked more than once of the district attorney, did you feel that the arrests on Thursday were significant?
And that's the hope here. This is to let people know how much, what the reach of a cooperative effort is. The state police through CNET were picking people up in Rochester for us this morning, which is fantastic. That's something we wouldn't have had the ability to do a few years ago. But for the willingness of the state police to cooperate, the sheriff's department, our local police departments, we see the Canasteo PD is here now. They're very helpful this morning. Everybody working together expands our reach. We wouldn't be able to get to folks in Rochester without that reality.
And the district attorney, Brooks Baker, said that cooperation was good between the different law enforcement agencies.
No, it was absolutely amazing. The briefing here this morning, we had, I think, was it 13 teams? About 40-some-odd officers here this morning. They paired off as mixed groups. We had people who were from the Sheriff's Department, State Police, and our local PDs working together on individual teams, and it was absolutely seamless. We briefed for about an hour, and we had our first people in custody within about 45 minutes after that. It was a seamless effort this morning. It really was.
And the district attorney noted that Hornell residents should be proud of their police force.
Hornell should be very, very proud of how much work they put into making this happen and getting the information together, dedication, resources, and time to make something like this happen. And there's a huge amount of coordination here, and these guys made this happen. Everybody else came in and loaned what they could, but this is a Hornell project, and they really deserve a ton of credit. And I think you'll see a splash here. I think putting these folks in jail will let folks know that if you do deal drugs in Hornell, you're not going to get away with it. You're going to get caught. Even if you go to Rochester and hide, we're going to find you.
Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray did make a point of saying this won't end all drug problems, but it'll put a dent in it.
We're not naive enough to think that this takes care of all the drugs that are in Hornell. It's certainly going to continue, and we're going to continue our efforts. But I would advocate anyone that has a drug problem to seek help, seek medical help, and don't be on their streets looking for a drug dealer.
At one point, a reporter asked about the types of drugs. District Attorney Brooks Baker said mostly Oxycontin and crack cocaine.
Oxycontin would fall into that, as well as crack cocaine.
District Attorney Brooks Baker was also asked the question, what tools do you need to make these sorts of arrests happen?
One, it's always money and manpower. So those are two things that we always need. But as far as legislatively, what we desperately need is some way to address these ever-changing chemical compounds. Bath salts is our biggest issue right now. It's an absolutely deadly substance. These guys who've actually dealt with those people on bath salts come back with horror stories. I know Investigator Aney has had some really interesting dealings with some of these folks. The sheriff has as well. I'm sure Captain Dogger could share the same thing. The problem is that these things are manufactured by chemists, and as soon as New York State makes one illegal, they change a compound, and it's not illegal anymore. We need a law that deals with that. The federal government has one, we don't, so we need something like that to be able to address that reality.
One question that came up was about the difference between dealers and users. District Attorney Brooks Baker.
Users are people with a problem. We can arrest users all day long. Dealers will still find more users to give drugs to. We're not going to stop them. They have a problem, and we try to treat them primarily. People who deal drugs, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it for money. And if we can take them out of the box and reduce the number of dealers, then less people will use. And less people use, there'll be less dealers. It's a downward spiral if we can make that happen. I think as Ted very well said, we're not naive enough to believe that taking one dealer off the street is going to stop our drug problem. But if we keep on doing it, it may slow it down. Our goal is if we can keep one or two people from going on drugs, we can make a huge difference.
WLEA asked the question of District Attorney Brooks Baker, was there any federal involvement as far as law enforcement agencies went? District Attorney Brooks Baker said there was not. One of the last questions was about will there be more treatment available for users? Here's what Brooks Baker said to that.
In Hornell, a great drug court. We have one in the city of Corning as well, and one in the county. We're trying to set up some additional drug courts in other locations in the county. Treatment is a scarce resource. It's very expensive, but we're doing our best to make it accessible to people. And that's more a public health issue than we can really deal with. But our goal is when we can utilize the criminal justice system to treat somebody and remove that problem, we do.
Getting towards the end of the press conference here, we're going to be switching over in just a moment to the Eric Schneiderman and Kathy Hochul audio. Before we do that, I wanted to get a statement here from police investigator Tom Aini of the Hornell Police Department talking about, he was asked a question about safety issues for police. Did they feel safe going out into all these places and making these arrests?
It was safe. We also executed a couple of search warrants about a month ago that were also related to this investigation.
Police investigator Tom Aini there. You're listening to Top Story here on AM 1480 WLEA. I'm Brian O'Neill. In the next segment, it'll be the State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. After that, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, both of whom visited Hornell this week. Back on Top Story, I'm Brian O'Neill. Well, two big guests in Hornell this week, State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. They were both in Hornell. We cover State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's press conference first. He was here to talk about his proposal to crack down on lending institutions who let the problem of abandoned or zombie houses go on too long.
So we're here to meet with leaders in the community and talk about our housing programs that resulted from the settlements we've had with major financial institutions. In January 2012, in a State of the Union speech, President Obama made me the co-chair of a working group, really an unprecedented state-federal working group to investigate the banks whose conduct caused the crash of the housing market, and then to negotiate settlements to try and get relief for the communities that were hurt. And we have, today we are releasing a report on our Homeowner Protection Program, or HOP, which is a program through which we provide funding for housing counseling and legal services. And it's now almost about 3 years old, and we're about to hit our 50,000th family. So 50,000 New York families have been helped by this program, which now includes almost 90 legal services and housing counseling agencies around the state, including here in Steuben County and really every part of the state. So 50,000 people helped. We've developed a loan program that is very successful, so people who don't qualify for mortgage modifications because they have a small debt can get through the HOP network a small loan, and they've given out actually just in Steuben and Allegheny counties $284,000 worth of loans to families since in the last year. This is just a brand new program, and that helps them ensure that they can get the mortgage modification, lower their rates, and stay in their house. So we're working hard to help communities and to help cities like Hornell, which has a great mayor and a great city government, do whatever they can do to deal with the problem of folks having trouble making their mortgages, the threat of foreclosure, and also to deal with the problems of abandoned properties and the need to rehabilitate them or demolish them, and because they really are blight on the community. They bring down property values. If you manage to keep your house through the crisis, but you're in between two abandoned houses, you're still a victim of the crash. And we're doing everything we can do to help with that. And successful partnership so far. And we're here to talk with the mayor and with other leaders in the community about our programs, what else they're thinking about they need. We've adapted as we've gone forward. We learned about the need for the land bank funding that we're doing in many parts of the state after realizing that this abandoned property problem was not going away.
State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, he was in Hornell on Wednesday at Hornell City Hall talking about this legislation he wants to see passed that would hopefully prevent the problem of abandoned or zombie houses.
So are hoping we'll be able to pass a zombie property legislation, which the mayor's been a great supporter of this coming legislative session. Zombies are houses where the bank has begun foreclosure proceedings but hasn't completed them, and the family's left. So it's an empty property. The bank says they don't have any obligation to keep it up, so it falls into disrepair, and local governments tend to have to fix them up, or they can become havens for crime, or a lot of arson and abandoned properties. And again, they also affect the property values and bring down the whole neighborhood. So we're learning as we go, and we brought a lot of relief to a lot of New Yorkers, but we're looking forward to being more creative and more inventive, listening to our partners about what really is needed. And it's excited about getting into a meeting with our counterparts here, and also not just partners in government, but the nonprofits and the activists who work in housing and are really making this happen. And so that's why we're here today.
At this point, Mayor Sean Hogan, who was standing right there with the State Attorney General, spoke up about the problem of abandoned or zombie houses.
I'd like to welcome the Attorney General to the city of Hornell and Steuben County, but he has been a real champion of this issue of foreclosed properties and neighborhood revitalization throughout the state, and he has really put some money where his interests lie in regards to this thing. He was instrumental and was one of the only attorney generals in the country that did not accept the settlement with the banks, fought for a better deal, got a better deal, and he's been using the money proactively from his office to help thousands and thousands of New Yorkers maintain their homes, get into safe homes in a safe environment, but also help communities set up land banks that deals with foreclosed property and abandoned property. So, he is certainly a champion of the people, and one that really, as far as politicians go in New York, is the only one that's taken up that challenge. And he has our undying gratitude as a mayor and an upstate resident.
This is State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's presser from City Hall. That was Mayor Sean Hogan that we just heard. At this point in the presser, WLEA asked a question about how does a home get on the zombie house list?
The legislation, which we have strong support from mayors all over the state and county executives all over the state for, legislation provides a couple of things. It defines zombies as any property that the bank knows to be abandoned, and the banks are required to check on a regular basis. And once they know that it is abandoned and they have begun foreclosure proceedings, then they agree to take care of the property to maintain it from that point on. Now they have an obligation to maintain the property starting at the end of the foreclosure process before they even sell it. But we're just moving it up to make sure that the property is maintained throughout this period of time. New York has a slow foreclosure process. In return, the banks are getting expedited foreclosure for these cases. That's what the legislation brings together, those two pieces. And it would create a register of properties, because it is very hard for local governments sometimes to tell who actually owns the mortgage on a property. They get sold, and it's really hard to do. Create a register, and then if there are any violations of this by a bank that doesn't maintain the property, doesn't register as zombie property, that money would go to code enforcement, go to the local governments that are tasked with keeping up these communities. This is a huge problem all across New York State, and it's particularly a problem in New York because of the slowness of our foreclosure process. So this is the next step in our commitment to helping revive the communities that have been hurt by the crash of the economy, and we're very determined to keep moving this forward and pushing this agenda.
And Jason Jordan from the Hornell Evening Tribune asked the question, if smaller amounts of money are given out in loans, does that help prevent the housing bubble problem?
No, the HOP program, when I took office, there were 345,000 New York families facing foreclosure. And I quickly learned that about half of them had never had a chance to talk to a lawyer at any stage of the process. So the first thing we did was say, there are families all over New York State that are eligible for mortgage modifications. Each deal we closed, each settlement with the bank, and we just had huge, massive settlements with J.P. Morgan, Chase, Citibank, and Bank of America. The largest settlements in American history. Bank of America, $16.7 billion. There's a lot of resources nationally. Our working group has recovered more than $60 billion nationally, and more than $4 billion of that has come to New York. So we're working hard on that. But all the HOP program does is make sure you have a housing counselor or a lawyer to tell you what you can do and how you can maybe get relief from your mortgage. There are programs that are available from the federal government, but there are also requirements in our settlements with the banks that if those banks hold the mortgage, they will give you a write-down. But if you don't know about it, you can't do it. So all this does is help people stay in their homes. It doesn't create a bubble or anything else. It just helps break up this problem of rampant foreclosures. And it's better for the banks because you're better off having a $200,000 mortgage that's performing than a $250,000 mortgage that's in trouble. So we've worked this all out, and it's just a matter of keeping people in their homes. So when some family loses their home, kids get pulled out of school, it affects people's ability to keep jobs. This is a very important to any community, and that's what we do with that program. The MAP program was an addition when we discovered that there were some families who would be eligible for a modification, but they had a little bit of debt. Maybe they hadn't paid off some other mortgage. They had a little medical debt. Talking often about very small amounts of money, $10,000. And by getting a no-interest loan through the legal services or housing counselors we fund, they became eligible for the modification. So they could stay in their home, and the repayment of the loan is almost like a second mortgage that gets tacked on after the first mortgage. So they're very effective programs, and they stabilize communities and keep property values from falling. But it's not something that this is not something that's creating a bubble.
Now, both Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan and State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman talked about how Hornell aggressively works to fight the problem of abandoned houses.
Hornell is one of the most active and creative cities in the state. That's another one of the reasons we're here in dealing with this issue, but really have done things before we even came up with some of these programs. The mayor and his administration were addressing it. You want to say something?
Well, we started a home building program, taking lots that we had torn down homes, replaced them with new homes. We're just completing our 7th new home, which are brand new homes in partnership with Bosse's Construction. We have a partnership with the County of Steuben where we are allowed to remove properties from the property tax sale. We take those properties, we try to get them in the hands of responsible people who are going to fix them up, not just flip them and bleed them further dry with substandard rental property. Try to get them into first-time home buyers or responsible landlords. We also have been working with the banks. Our Director of Neighborhood Violation if the bank has written off the property and has written off their interest, we seek out the former owners who still have legal title and get them to sign off that legal title to somebody who is going to fix up the properties in a proper fashion. So we're on top of it. Despite our best efforts, we still have about 70 properties that we're dealing with where we have to mow the lawns, we have to shovel the walks, and they're just not. They're not a productive part of our neighborhood and our culture where we want to have a vibrant community. And, it's going to take everybody working as a team, the Attorney General, the State of New York, and the counties involved to really tackle this problem in a progressive way. But we feel that we're doing much more than most.
It was a press conference on Wednesday at Hornell City Hall with State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan there. Now moving on to Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, who stopped by Alstom in Hornell on Thursday. We asked her, WLEA asked her about the contract that Alstom hopes to get with Amtrak.
Absolutely, very much so. There's a major contract which they're looking at right now, which we hope to get some answers for in the next few months. The Governor and I have been extremely supportive of that effort and are doing everything we can to bring that business right here to the southern tier.
And, of course, you can hear the machinery in the background. That's because these segments, these audio sound bites, were recorded at Alstom. Jason Jordan from the Evening Tribune asked the question of Lieutenant Governor Hochul, what can your office do to help places like Alstom in Hornell? Here's what she said.
A lot of ways. We can give economic development assistance, which we've done in the past, and continue to do so to support their efforts to secure larger contracts. It's important. We've also, as they put in bids for regional economic development dollars through the council, which I chair for the whole state, I now have a chance to have seen their operations and can be an advocate for them in that capacity as well. They also have other challenges with respect to rail. Norfolk Southern comes to this area, and there's some opportunities perhaps for us to be of assistance in finding the right price point for them to be able to transport their cars, railroad cars down to their facility now a mile down the road. So there's a lot of different parts. There's a part we can help with economic development dollars, creating access for them, supporting contract bids that they have out there right now. So there's many ways that they can be of assistance.
Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul there. She visited Hornell on Thursday, stopping by Alstom. We heard that segment. She also stopped by the Broadway Lofts. Well, in this show today, top story on AM 1480 WLEA, Saturday, August 15th. We've heard from Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, the audio sound bites from her press conference at Alstom. Also, State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's press conference from Wednesday at Hornell City Hall about the abandoned or zombie house problem. We started out, of course, with the press conference from District Attorney Brooks Baker's office. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. I'm Brian O'Neill. Thanks for listening. ABC is next.